From the Hockey Podcast, we are back this week on Zoom again and again. Playoff hockey has begun in a lot of areas, and it is getting ready to begin in the NHL. BCHL playoffs have just begun. Well, not just, they're about a week in. Two of those series are already complete. Let me pull it up so I can have my facts right here. Alberni Valley swept Cowichan Valley in the first round, and Nanaimo swept Surrey. So those two matchups in the BCHL are over. Game 5 tonight, as of this recording anyway. I'll say tonight, but of this recording, Game 5 tonight, Penticton and Trail, and and it's the first playoffs for the BCHL as a standalone. So this is their first go around as a standalone outside of the CJHL. So the winner of the BCHL this year will be the winner. There won't be winning the BCHL and then earning your way into Fred Cup or whatever it is for the CJ. So this is your first year as standalone for the BCHL, and it is.
You know what I like about watching this, and you and I have watched a lot of BCHL hockey for years and years. We paid close attention to the players and the franchises and the changes. You know what I really admire about that league, maybe with the exception of the poor merit centennials, is you can be terrible for a couple of years and then be a championship contender, and they all come and go. Everybody has their days in the sun, their 15 minutes of fame. You got clubs like Penticton that are constantly at the top, but the rest of the league, they come and go, and you don't go through these prolonged periods of doldrums and fan apathy. I really like the way they do things. These clubs rebound, they have a couple of bad years, they draft and develop, and away you go. Now all of a sudden you're a contender.
It was just a year or two ago that Coquitlam was actually better than Penticton. They were the top, and now they're one of the last seeds to earn a playoff spot. So it does vary. And Surrey and Langley this year are two of your top teams in the league. So whereas last year and the year before, they both floundered down with merit a little bit. So it is nice. It's to me, it makes it interesting. It makes it fun because you go in each year going, anybody could take it. And by the end of the season, oh, wow, this team's in first. And oh, wow, poor merit aside, this team's in last. So, I mean, it bounces. It's not the same as salary caps and a bunch of money where that has an effect on the team you build. So, oh, you're the contender. You're Tampa Bay winning back-to-back, potentially back-to-back, depending on what they do this year. So it is nice. And you're seeing it a little bit. Seeing it a little bit too in the NCAA. More and more schools are getting funding for recruitment, and you're starting to see more and more schools start to compete and start to be relevant. Northern Michigan and the CCHA has been competitive now for a few years. Minnesota State, 5 years ago, who was Minnesota State? And now they are several years in a row now your national championship favorite and your top ranked school. So you're starting to see it. It's good. And even in the NHL, you're seeing a little bit of the parity, a little bit more parity where on any given night, the top Florida Panthers, Colorado Avalanche, Tampa Bay Lightning can drop to Arizona or to New Jersey or to poor Montreal, but to Montreal. So but per our discussion this week on the emotions of things, Montreal under St. Louis has had quite a resurgence a little bit and is showing signs of a team that could be pretty damn good in the next year or two if they continue to do things the right way. If St. Louis stays, I think that's a key. It'll be interesting to see if he does. So you're starting to see more of the parity across the game of hockey, which is cool. It's cool to talk about those positives away from the easy thing, which is the negatives of officiating this or penalties that or whatever. So it's fun to see.
I'm glad you brought that up. And we didn't. This is unrehearsed, but that's a great segue. I've been looking at this, and we see the same thing every year. Uh, and full marks to Buffalo Sabres for having a great month of March and into April, being very competitive, beating a lot of good teams. Detroit Red Wings, same deal. New Jersey Devils, Montreal Canadiens, a good example. And it's good for the fan base that the season is not. It can seem like it is no longer a total waste, right? So now it's fun to go back to the building again. No matter who's in town, no matter what it looks like on paper, we've got a chance tonight. But it's much easier to play with no pressure. So again, full respect to Marty St. Louis, full respect to the players for not giving up, for no matter whether it's Phoenix or Buffalo or who it is that really just had a horrible season. You come in, Phoenix comes into Denver 2-3 weeks ago or so and knocks off the Avalanche, ends their win streak. Never give up, never give in. If you're worse on paper, tough. Go out and play your heart out. This plays into the emotion of the game. It is a lot easier to make a 3-foot putt when it doesn't mean anything. It's just when there's pressure to win, pressure to gain a playoff seed, to gain home ice or something like that. These are teams that have a lot more to play for, and you start squeezing the stick a little tighter. Detroit Red Wings, a lot of these teams have been out of the playoffs since November.
Yep.
Now a coaching change or a little bit of mojo here and there, and all of a sudden these guys they're win 7 out of 10. This is great. Fans are interested again. We don't give up, and that's the right thing to do. But remember that the emotion of the game being such an enormous part of it makes it much easier, right? And you've been through it.
Absolutely.
You've been through it as a player. You know what it's like to know that there is no expectation. And when you, as a midget AA, was it midget AA?
Midget minor AA, yep.
Yeah. You guys, you knew it was uphill all season long. You played your hearts out, and you scared the crap out of some teams that thought they were going to push you around. And
Yep.
it's because you could play with some freedom. You didn't have to play with the same kind of pressure. So it really does make a difference.
Absolutely. On that note, and well, real quick, I'll touch on this, and then we'll dive into it. War Room the Hockey Podcast. You can find us on social media with Facebook and Instagram, War Room the Hockey Podcast, at War Room the Hockey Podcast, respectively. Make sure you like and follow us there. Engage with us. We'd love to hear from you. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio. Subscribe, rate and review, and share. And YouTube. Didn't post last week's episode on YouTube. Just with me not feeling great. Didn't want to ruin the allure of this sexiness that I bring every week. So I kept it off for my sake than anything. But YouTube, you can find episodes there when we are able to on Zoom. Hopefully when things settle and we get our studio going, and we've talked about this before. So appreciate your patience. But when we get our studio going, hopefully we'll get video versions of episodes every week, whether we're in person or not. But
that will happen.
It will happen at some point, so bear with us. We're on the Hockey Podcast this week. We're going to touch on the emotion of the game. A number of things that can be included in that. But part of the emotion, and I want to start off with this and get your take a little bit. You see it talked about by your Pierre LeBruns and your Ray Ferraros and Elliot Friedman's and stuff, and I personally view it as just typical reporting, broadcasting, headline searching. But I want to get your take on it. That the talk and the idea of a top team like a few years ago playing quote meaningful hockey down the stretch and getting swept in the first round the way Tampa did to Columbus. what kind of credence do you give to that? Because my take on it is that, what do you expect? Or any team would love to be in Florida or Colorado's position right now and be in first place. Are teams supposed to play 500 style hockey just for the sake of being able to say they played meaningful hockey down the stretch? So my take on it is that it falls strictly on the organization and the team to make sure that they're prepared come playoff time. Whether you finished first or eighth or wherever it was, that you are ready to go, no matter how much, quote, meaningful hockey you played down the stretch. And what I hear a lot from the Pierre LeBruns and all this stuff is, oh boy, how scary it is to be a top team because, ooh, you're not playing meaningful hockey. But what do you expect of them? Are they really supposed to not run the table and be a top seed? Are they really supposed to not compete that way? So I want to, maybe it's rhetorically, seeing you shake your head, that you agree with me. So maybe you don't necessarily need to answer, but I want to get your take on all that kind of stuff.
There's not one guy who's ever played, not one coach who's ever coached, not one GM who's ever managed a team, or one fan who's ever watched a game that would rather be a wild card, a play-in wild card, than a President's Cup winner. You always want to have home ice. You always want to go out every night and win every possible game, period. What happens is it comes to your mental toughness. So we've had a playoff, and now as of this recording, both Colorado and Florida are in the playoffs, and we're in early April. So what do they have left to play for? Well, home ice advantage and and pride. So go out and keep winning, keep everybody on their very, very best performance. What happens when a team wins the President's Trophy and then comes in and gets swept by Columbus Blue Jackets, as Tampa did a few years ago? You learn what it takes. You learn that lesson, and the really good teams like Tampa, really well-coached teams like John Cooper, and teams with great leadership like Stamkos and Hedman, these teams learn what it takes. When I was much younger, I saw it happen with the Edmonton Oilers. They were a juggernaut. They went in and played the old grisly New York Islanders and got donkey kicked. They learned what it took. And once you learn that lesson, sometimes you have to learn it the hard way by being bounced in the first round, maybe a couple of times, like Toronto Maple Leafs. But once you learn that lesson, then your leadership group and your coaching staff, and it permeates through your dressing room. Yes, we're in first place. Yes, we've got home ice. Yes, this team finished 28 points behind us in the standings. But if any of you guys start mailing in your effort, you're going to answer to Mark Messier. You're going to answer to Nate McKinnon. You're going to answer to Steve Stamkos. You're going to be in the press box. You don't know what it takes to win. So if you come in here giggling because you've got it, you dominate these guys on paper, you're an idiot, and I'm not going down with you. So once you learn that lesson, then it's no longer a factor. And I'll answer your question with one word, and that's maturity. So if you've got a mature team, then you can go in as the President's Trophy winner, and you don't run the risk of mailing in a poor effort. If you lack the leadership and the maturity, then you absolutely are at risk of being bounced by an 8 seed. So it's a real thing, because teams tend to, you got a bunch of 22-year-old kids on your team that are, making millions of dollars. They're on top of the social media world. How seriously can you possibly take, the play-in wildcard team, whoever it is? But look out this year, because your play-in wildcard team could be Dallas, it could be Nashville, it could be Vegas. It's not going to happen in the East, but you may be playing Washington. You want to take Washington Capitals lightly right now? No. So maturity, and it comes down to leadership and coaching, and it comes from inside the room and inside the player. Yep. But an excellent point regarding the emotion of the game. Spot on.
And speaking of the emotion, I don't know if you heard Daryl Sutter's comments in recent weeks.
He's a beauty, by the way. I love this guy, and
he's very deadpan. So he'll make a comment and you hear the reporters laughing, and he just sits there going,
"What?"
But his comments are pretty accurate too. It's all about mindset, because if you're, I'll take one of his comments after Calgary played Colorado and lost. He made his first comment, which was, if you are a wild card team and you're coming in not expecting to make the playoffs, and then you do and you draw Colorado, it's going to be a waste of 8 days. The mindset going with the emotion there, that even in Vancouver or Winnipeg or Vegas or Dallas's position right now, you better have the mindset that you are a playoff team, that you're ready to go, even if you're not in the playoffs at the moment, because when you do, you're going to draw Calgary or Colorado, and it may not end well if your mindset is not right to play that team. So mindset plays a lot with emotion. So you can't really have, in my opinion, you can't really have an emotion discussion without a mindset discussion.
They are absolutely one and the same, and that's why Daryl Sutter's record speaks for itself. That's why Daryl Sutter has the credibility that he does. That's why anyone named Sutter did what they did. They didn't do it on magic and skill. They didn't do it on dangles and trick shots and social media posts. They did it because they outworked anybody they played against every night. You might beat them, but you'll never, ever outwork them.
Yep.
And his message can grow old sometimes, especially with a modern player that's, like I said, he's 22 and he's on a 6x5 deal. But if you don't want to listen to Daryl Sutter, then don't listen at your own peril, because he will show you how to win. He did it in LA. He did it before in Calgary. He did it in Chicago. He's everywhere he's gone, he's been a winner and a contender. And if he didn't win, he made you take a crap load of aspirin after it was over with, because he and his 5 brothers would absolutely outwork anybody. You could not possibly outwork them. So that's why the two are tied together. And you, as we always talk about on here, whether it's player development as a bantam or a junior player, or whether it's a guy in the show, everybody's got skill. At that level, when you get to midget AAA, you get to junior and on into the minor leagues and the National Hockey League, everybody's got skill. They were all top scorers in their youth hockey days. Not everybody works hard. That's why Josh Hosang has never seen the light of day. That's why Dave Reed had a 13-year career. It's why Doug Smale had a 1,000-game career. They did it on hard work. They did it on emotion. You couldn't beat them. You couldn't beat them emotionally, and you couldn't outwork them. So that's what it takes, and that's why teams go on surprise run. That's what makes a Cinderella story. It's not a Cinderella story. It's a story of, like, these are coal miners going to work every day. So
speaking of hard work, congrats. Curtis McDermott earned a 2-year contract extension in Colorado.
Yeah, good for him.
So he's really, really liked in the dressing room. Really liked, and according to your leadership in Colorado, your Landeskog and your McKinnon, your Bednar, there is nobody that works harder on and off the ice than Curtis McDermott. So, and he's a utility guy.
Yeah.
I don't know much of the Colorado games you've watched, but I've seen several games where in the middle of a game, he'll switch. So Bednar will have him starting the game as a fourth line winger. 30 minutes of gameplay in, he's now on defense.
He dresses Evan for the playoffs. Think about the coaching decisions. You dress 13 forwards or 7 defensemen. Now you don't have to decide anymore. You can have both. And how many guys can do that in the modern era? Name 5 of them that could do both in the modern era. I'd be hard pressed. So good for him. And he's a great guy, and he's tough as a prison riot. He's got everything you want in a teammate. And by the way, he is a playoff guy. Yep. He's built for the playoffs in the same mold as Pat Maroon. And you could go right on down the line through, Brian Bickle and guys like that. He's built that way. You can't push him around. He'll always defend his teammates. He'll play hard no matter what. And when the playoff pace slows and the playoff intensity comes up, he's going to be a guy that will withstand.
Yep.
So good on him.
Your superstars fighting. Nathan McKinnon, Matt Dumba. How do you feel about that?
You know what?
Bednar came out and said he's not a fan of McKinnon fighting, but he sure as hell is not going to tell McKinnon not to.
No. And that is bang on. Connor McDavid broke his hand in a fight when he was in Erie in junior and missed a couple of weeks or so. But is somebody going to come along and tell him to tone down his emotion, his work ethic, let the wires cross? That's what makes Nate McKinnon a great player. He is this close to the wires, touching all the time. It's what makes him great. You get into it with your teammates. You get into it with your coaching staff. You've seen it. It's what makes him great. It's not because he hates anybody. He hates to lose. That's what he hates. So that's why he works harder than anybody in the off season. That's why he works harder than anybody on the ice. Let him go. I don't want Nate McKinnon and his salary and his meaningfulness to this team, or Matt Dumba for that matter. I don't want those guys fighting. If they do, stand back and let them go.
Yep.
Let them go.
Absolutely. Well, before we touch on the main topic of the emotion, which I know we're on the same page with, and that's the Troy Terry Jay Beagle incident. But I don't see now. I've completely lost my train of thought. I could have just said what I wanted to say rather than doing that.
I think when you said we were on the same page, I think what really made you sort of lose track.
Yes. That's what I was going to say. Before we touch on it, real quick, call back to a few weeks ago. You're more in tune with because of your relationship with former officials. With how the setup and the cycle of things works. I find it interesting, though, that we have not, since that weeks ago, we have not seen a Colorado game officiated by Wes McCauley or TJ. Is that a cycle just of where they fall type of thing, or is that a choice by the league to kind of go, okay, we're going to pull you from this for right now just to keep it fresh?
That is that's to protect the official, it's to protect the teams, and most of all to protect the game. It's not in some cases it's an accident, but generally not. It's going to be, let's just keep everybody out of harm's way. Let's let the game be the star and not the coach throwing sticks on the ice or the official having to tee up a superstar or something like that, or have somebody be like, the best thing you can do as an official is to never be noticeable. It's like being a defenseman. You do not want to be noticed. If you are, it's because something went bad. So the goal is to never be the lead story. You don't ever want officiating to be the lead story. Just let everybody cool down. Everybody respects each other, but in the heat of the moment, as you know, as an official and as a player, and as I know as a coach and a player, and having been through all that, boy, the last thing you want to do after getting tossed out of a game or having lost a tough one because of some real controversial calls one after another or non-calls, the last thing you want to do is see that guy again tomorrow night or Saturday or whatever. Give everybody a break. So I think
brings up an interesting question too that I'm sure some people are curious about. After moments like that, do you know, or do you think TJ and Gabe Landeskog met and shook hands, cleared the air a little bit, or have they just left it and haven't spoken since?
In 95% of the cases, the air gets cleared. The officials don't want to be at odds with a player or a coach. They don't want to have to see this guy 7 or 8, 10 times a year for the next 20 years and have the same lingering problem. Just like with the other players, it's a little different with the players because you have to battle with them, but you're not out there as an official to battle with the players and the coaches. So in any possible case where the opportunity exists to meet in the runway after, or to reach out by text or something like that and clear the air, they'll laugh it off and it'll be fine. I mean, in the heat of battle, you know what it's like. You get in fight with teammates in practice. You get in a screaming match with your coach at practice or on the bench. It happens. And that goes back to the emotion of the game. But the mature player like Landeskog, the mature official like TJ, they're gonna say, hey, no hard feelings, just doing my job. We didn't see it the same way. See you around. And they'll clear it up.
Yep. I'm gonna pull up I'm gonna pull up your topic email here. Just make sure we're covering everything.
Well, this is one other thing before we get to the main topic of emotion here, the Anaheim incident, and I'm not 100% sure that we're on the same page with this one. It'll be interesting to see.
Well, what I mean by same page is that we're on the same page. Is the big talking point per the emotion of the game, because it's the most relevant situation that's happened recently. I know for a fact, and this is the not nerve-wracking part, but this is the part that I knew coming into this, where I know we're not 100% on the same page with how that went down.
Okay.
But I know we're on the same page enough to know that it's the talking point. It's when you talk about and think of the emotion of the game and of things, it's the one to talk about because it's the most recent one that has to do with the emotion and with how a game goes and all this stuff. So let's see. So
one other thing that I would like to point out with respect to the emotion of the game, and for anybody who doesn't understand how big of a role it plays or is not clear on what we're trying to get at, picture yourself in second intermission. You're sitting in the dressing room and you're up 3-1, or you're down 3-1, one or the other. You're on one side of that score or the other, and you go out into the third period, and at the 12-minute mark, the team that's down scores. Now who's got the advantage? Now, at the 16-minute mark, they score again. You go into overtime, who's got the advantage? They're tied, or maybe I'm up 3-2. But now I'm playing cautious. I'm just trying to play not to lose. The advantage always goes to the team that's coming back, whether it's in a series or in a game. You just The emotion is unmistakable, and you've seen it every night in every game you've ever watched. Team scores a goal to get within one or to tie the game. The bounce gets in your step. Now you've got a huge emotional advantage over the other team, regardless of the skill level, regardless of the matchups, regardless of the standings. It's totally irrelevant. You've now got them right where you want them. And that's the difference in the emotion. And if you've got it and you don't have to be down and kicked around to get the emotion, the fight or flight kind of emotion, then great. Maybe you don't ever have to be in that position. Not many people can do that.
Yep.
So that's what we're trying to get to.
Yep, 100%. So going the Ducks. So Ducks were up 5-0, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
And scrum happens in front of Arizona's net. Terry comes in. Beagle puts kind of a licking on him. And then it kind of blew up. Here, there's two ways for me to look at it. One, I always go to a lot of incidents you see. I go to earlier this year, Gabe Landeskog and Matthias Ekholm.
Yeah.
When Ekholm ripped Rantanen's helmet off and threw it down the ice and was doing all these things, and then Landeskog bloodied him. Moments like that, I always draw on that. Don't play tough guy unless you're ready to be a tough guy.
That's
so
the same.
In that situation, Troy Terry comes in and grabs Jay Beagle. Don't grab Jay Beagle unless you're prepared for what Jay Beagle might do. That's my stance on it. Where I have an issue with what happened is that when Troy Terry is down, there's a sportsmanship level here where you leave it be. Jay Beagle taking shots at Troy Terry and bloodying him and swelling his eye and doing these things while he's on the ice, that much I have a problem with. This is not a fight where they fall to the ice and things are still jumbled while the linesmen jump in and somebody might get another shot in. If you watch the replay, Jay Beagle took liberties with Troy Terry while he was on the ice. That is what I have an issue with. Jay Beagle's response to what happened to getting grabbed, no issue. It's physical. It's a game of hockey. If you're not ready to be a tough guy, then don't act like one. It's the liberties that Jay Beagle took while Troy Terry was on the ice that I have an issue with.
The difference, Evan, is this was an angry fight. This was a fight of pure anger. This wasn't one of those respect things where, your guy ran my guy and now we're the two heavyweights, so we got to go. Or I'm trying to make the roster. Will you please give me a fight? We got no issue, but I need a fight. Can you give me one? And guys do that for each other all the time. This was one of just pure anger. And I'll give you a little bit of background that goes before that. I respect and I have no issue with the skill level that it takes to be Trevor Zegras and what he's done. It's kind of the new way that the league is going, and I got no problem with it. If you can get away with that stuff, do so. It doesn't sit well with everybody, as we've discussed. It is not popular everywhere that guys do that stuff. And what happened that leading up to this incident was he had already pulled off one of the lacrosse goals earlier in the night. Go for it. If you can do that, do it. But now you're up 5-0, and there is a maybe not a loose puck in front of the Videlka, whatever, Vamelka, or whatever the guy's name is, who was,
whatever his name is, yeah.
yeah, in net for the Coyotes. Zegras, they're up 5-0, and he's whacking away at what he says was a loose puck.
Yep.
That's going to get you in trouble at our East-West game. You're up 5-0. You've scored a lacrosse goal. Yeah, you're a showboat. You're a hot shot. Jay Beagle is not. He's a plumber. He's a mucker. He's a hardworking guy. He had enough. He had enough. That's going to get you a cross check to the back of the neck every time. And forgive me for this. You may not like to hear this, but it should. You ought to get your ass kicked. And I don't care if you're Troy Terry or Trevor Zegras or anybody else in this league. If you are showboating and digging at a loose puck when you're up 5-0 in the third period, you better be ready to defend yourself. Now, one point of respect for Troy Terry. He is not a tough guy, like you said. He's a skill player, good dude. He came to the rescue of a teammate. He came in there to try to protect his guy, and Beagle kicked the crap out of him for it. Full marks to Troy Terry for trying to get in there and look after his teammate. But his teammate ought to be slapped for digging around at a loose puck up 5-0 and then saying, what's everybody so mad about? Well, look, maybe you don't maybe you don't mind losing, and you are losing. Your team is terrible, and you're getting donkey kicked 3 nights out of 4. Maybe that doesn't bother you. It doesn't seem to bother players in the NBA to lose a game by 35 points and have guys slam dunking on them in the fourth quarter. Okay, if that doesn't bother you, that's fine. But it bothers a lot of guys. And if it doesn't bother you, then shame on you. If you're down 5-0 and you got a guy celebrating and showboating and digging at loose pucks and kicking your goaltender around, and you don't get mad about it, why are you playing? Why don't you play river hockey and go out and do trick shots and stuff? I think Trevor Zegras lit that fuse. He shouldn't have. Somebody, Getzlaff or somebody on that team, needs to take him aside and teach him a little respect for the game, a little respect for his opponent. I've got no issue with the kid and his skill level. That was an incident that never should have happened. And that's a brash young kid.
There's a sportsmanship factor that goes in play across the board. If you've got that skill, great. There's no reason why you shouldn't be allowed to use it.
No.
If you can successfully do it.
Right.
However, whether it's 5-0 or it's 12-0 or whatever the score is, there comes a point in a game where it's a foregone conclusion that you're going to win said game. And continuing to do things, like when we were younger, continuing to skate to the hash marks and winding up for a big slap shot when you're up 7-2 and there's 90 seconds left. There's only one purpose for you doing that. And it's now trying to show up the other team's goaltender or do something stupid. So there's a respect factor and a sportsmanship factor that goes across the board. And the Arizona broadcast made comments of it. I don't know if you heard it while the incident was going on. I don't know word for word.
I did not.
It was along the lines of, if these young Anaheim kids want to act this way, then what do they think is going to happen?
My point.
So, and that's 100% correct. To me, we can't scream sportsmanship that way and not point to sportsmanship the other way. Especially if it's Zegras who lit the fuse and Troy Terry's doing what to your point, in the Jay Beagle stance, what any hockey player would do in a situation. Well, Troy Terry's doing what any hockey player would do. He's coming to the defense of a teammate, or what any hockey player should do. Should he come in defense of a teammate or not prepared or not expecting that it might get a little rough. Sure, he needs to expect that whether he's a fighter or not.
Absolutely.
But you talk about that being an angry fight more than a respect sportsmanship fight. Okay, um, to me, the sportsmanship factor comes into play that Beagle needs to understand that it's not Troy Terry doing a lacrosse move and it's not Troy Terry showboating. Troy Terry's doing what Jay Beagle would do, and he's defending a teammate.
Yep.
So I'll do what I need to because Troy Terry from behind and grabbed me. But once Troy Terry is down, or once the linesman jumps in, I'm done. Like Troy Terry's not Trevor Zegras. I'm done. So to me, there's a respect factor here that Troy Terry, fighter or not, is on the ice, and you're taking shots at him.
Yep.
You're taking liberties with him, angry or not. That doesn't fly. There's a respect factor amongst players, the Players Association, that doesn't sit well, and rightfully so. And so it goes both ways.
I see it, and you're
don't
not
rip off a player's helmet, throw it down the ice, and then be shocked that Gabe Landeskog puts your face into the ice.
well.
Don't be shocked
saying,
that Jay Beagle, angry about what's going on, turns around and takes his anger out on you. Don't be shocked by that. At the same time, your $9 million hockey professional athletes have the wherewithal and the common sense to turn around and realize, wait a minute, yeah, he plays for Anaheim, but that's not Trevor Zegras. So I'll respond to him grabbing me, but once that's done, it's done. No liberties, no issues. It would be different, and I'm not condoning any type of violent situations that can end bad. And I'm definitely not comparing to anything that's happened in the past. All I'm saying is, and I know that you stand with me on not having those moments that we saw from Todd Bertuzzi or anybody else. But the point is, and I'm not condoning it necessarily, but the point is, it'd be one thing if it was Trevor Zegras. Jay Beagle turns around and puts a licking on Trevor Zegras. Here's your message. Here's your lesson. It wasn't Trevor Zegras. So you're in the right. You're good. Now Troy Terry's on the ice. You leave it. It's a sportsmanship factor across the board, and emotions run high. The emotions of the game. That's the topic this week. But there's a respect factor of keeping emotions in check a little bit to understand what the situation is.
If Beagle could have gotten his hands on Zegras, if he could have cross-checked Terry and done away with him and then found Zegras, I think that would have been ideal. But he didn't. So it's not going to be the most popular thing that I ever say on this podcast, but Troy Terry's blood is on Zegras's hands. And just like we talked about a long time ago when I believe it was Toronto, Vancouver playoff many, many years ago, 30 years ago, guys are running Doug Gilmour. I think it was Gino Ojic in Vancouver's running Doug Gilmour a couple times. When Clark comes on the ice, he stands next to Pavel Bure, who's a little skilled guy, and he says, if they touch Gilmour one more time, you're dead. It's not you, you're not doing it, but you go back to your bench and you tell Ojic, if he touches our guy one more time, you are dead. You're leaving here on a stretcher. And yeah, I get it, but you can't always find the right guy. Well, so sometimes you just got to say, I'll take anybody in a sweater that I can find. I'm going to grab anything.
That's where I stand with it. Is believe it or not, I'd have a lot more respect for the situation too, from Jay Beagle's standpoint. If Jay Beagle went up and he tried to get Zegras, I want Zegras, and Zegras didn't answer. Yeah. So Jay Beagle at the next face-off, or the next time these two teams play each other, depending on how much time's left in the game or whatever, goes, okay, fine. And he runs at Troy Terry.
Right.
Now you're looking at a situation of, okay, Zegras, here's your lesson. You answer for this, or somebody else is going to have to.
Right. I get
that. In that moment, though, you're still in the heat of that moment. going at Troy Terry first before doing anything with Zegras or trying to me, that's a problem. To me, that might be my opinion only. To me, that's an issue. You try and get at Zegras, you get at Zegras, you grab at him, you do this and that. He proves that he's not going to do anything. Fine. Next time, all right, now I'm running at Troy Terry. Like we talk about all the time. It was the, Taylor Hall hit on Nathan McKinnon. Taylor Hall doesn't want to answer. Fine. Then put McDermott or Landeskog out there and take a run at Danton Heinen or at Bergeron or Pasternak or somebody like that. Fine. After you've tried to get the guy responsible to be responsible,
right?
Which didn't happen.
And from the
replay, there was no. From the replay, I didn't see anything from Beagle reaching at Zegras. He just turned around and went right at Troy Terry, and to me, that doesn't fall in line with that type of situation. Now you're just being almost a goon, like that, and everything like that.
Listen, Jay Beagle's never been that way. He plays tough. He plays a third and fourth line role. If you remember many years ago, he was the guy. Do you remember Aaron Asham doing the old go to sleep move?
Yeah.
When he was in Pittsburgh, that was Jay Beagle that he knocked out. So Jay Beagle's not a fighter. He's not a goon. He's a tough player. He's a grinder. That's just simply a matter of, and he understands the code. He understands the respect as well as anyone. That particular 3 or 4 seconds was just a matter of building for 2.5 periods. We're down 5-0 in our own building. We're getting ass kicked. I've had it. I am so tired of losing. I am so tired of these young kids showboating. I'm so tired of that little prick doing that lacrosse move. I can't see straight. The wires touch when he starts slapping the goaltender after the whistle, and we're not thinking about retribution the next time we see him. We're not thinking about finding Trevor Zegras next time I play these guys and trying to get him to answer for his own problems. We're not thinking about the proper way to do it. I'm going to grab anything in an Anaheim sweater and start wailing. And that's all it was. And this goes back to the game of emotion.
100%. I think it's.
Is it right? Probably not.
We're more on the same page than I thought we'd be with a lot of this. I get it, and I get that. I get why it happened. My only point when you talk about emotions, and I'm not out there, I'm not making $9 million a year, I'm not playing in the NHL, I'm not trying to compete for a Stanley Cup. I'm sitting here in a desk chair talking about it on a podcast. But to me, I like to think that these professional athletes are capable of checking emotions a bit. And to me, and maybe it's my point, maybe the point doesn't make any sense, but to me, the way to have done it in that situation was Troy Terry grabs me, I grab him back, and if he starts taking little shots at me, fine. But unless that happens, I grab him back and we give face washes, and that's kind of it. My concern is Trevor Zegras. That's my concern. He's showboating. He's taking shots. That's my concern. If I can't get him, or more importantly, he refuses to answer, then at the next face-off or the next time we meet or whenever, now I skate by him in warm-ups and I tell him, because of you, Troy Terry's getting it. Yeah. Or because of you, this or that's going to happen. And then you get Troy Terry. To me, that would have been a more, how do I want to say it, more appropriate emotional response to what occurred.
You're right.
Maybe that's just me.
You're right. But in that particular moment, when you've got a team that is statistically the worst team in the league, Jay Beagle's a proud guy. He's been a slugger for a long time. He's been a grinder in this league for a long time. He's sick of losing. He's sick of being down 5-0 in his own building. He's sick of being embarrassed. and I'm not making excuses for it. It's no different than a guy throwing his club in the pond because he hit a bad shot. It's just, you know better than that. It's not the club's fault. It just, I'm so spun up right now. I can't decide what's right and wrong necessarily for a few seconds here. And I'm just going to grab somebody in the other sweater. I don't care who it is. And I'm not saying that's the right way to go. I'm just saying it does happen. And in that situation, you bring it on yourself. The other issue to be concerned with here is why is your top line on the ice when you're up 5-0? Why are you not? And I got the same issue with Steve Moore being on the ice in the third period of that game, up 7-2 against the Canucks in 2004. Why was he even there?
Yeah.
Don't put these guys out there. This kid scored a lacrosse goal. He's a young kid. He's not going to be able to defend himself. The other team is pissed off. Why is he there? You're up 5-0. Give the third and fourth line a chance.
Well,
Throw
maybe
your guys out there and let them get some minutes.
Our favorite goaltender may not like this, but maybe it's an organizational issue. Maybe there's something with Eakins and how they do things, because to me, you're 100% correct. To me, the situation would breed what we talk about in the past all the time, which is you're not a playoff team. You're not there. This is the perfect time to call some people up and give some guys some ice time. See what they can do in a game situation. Test out these young kids, see what they can bring, all this stuff. Well, it's the same situation. You're up 5-0, whether you're a playoff team or not. This is the perfect time. You know that Troy Terry and Trevor Zegras can put up 40 goals a year. That's not really a question.
No.
Put your third and fourth lines in, call somebody up, do something, let them have some moments here to see what they can do, because that's how you rebuild and grow. And that was a failed, missed opportunity by Eakins and the organization, just like it was in 2004 when with the Avalanche. And to show that I'm being objective and not pointing at everybody else but my own team, I'll say this. I think it was an organizational thing with Colorado back then. Trevor Moore was not a dirty player, but he hit Marcus Naslund.
Who had
somebody's gonna answer for that, because Marcus Naslund is your star. So what ends up happening, and it shouldn't have, because you needed to have somebody out there who could have answered the bell. So whether that was Chris Simon or or Dingman or whoever the guy was for Colorado back then, somebody needed to be out there in the third period on the ice, not Steve Moore, because you have to understand 7-2, you're in Vancouver, you're embarrassing them. The last time you played them, Steve Moore hit Naslund knee on knee. And now not only are you playing them again, but now you're embarrassing them while doing it. So you're winning 7-2 after you went knee to knee with somebody. Be prepared that, and I'm not saying that the proper response was what Todd Bertuzzi did, but be prepared that somebody is going to want to answer for what's going on.
And he did.
And
if you remember that game, and you were young then, I don't know, but I mean, you were like 11 or 12. Steve Moore fought Brad May earlier that night. He answered. He went out and, he gave Brad May the fight. He stood up and took responsibility for himself. He should have been nowhere near the ice in the third period. He should have been nowhere near the ice when they got up 3 or 4 goals. And either he or his teammates or somebody should have corrected the coaching staff and said, do not put him out there. There's going to be trouble. That was, and your point is correct about the proper response, the appropriate response when somebody does something disrespectful to you and shows up your team when you're down. That was the worst of all worlds. That was 2 weeks later, after the Steve Moore Naslund incident at center ice. Naslund had his head down. He led through center ice with his head at like below chest level, and he got clocked. Keep your head up. So Moore goes out and fights Brad May. Situation over. Issue resolved, done, move on. Now you're down 7-2 and you're still putting him out there. Todd Bertuzzi, who had a good career and was by all other accounts a pretty good guy, he had 2 weeks to think about it. He had 2 weeks to think about, if this guy won't answer the bell, then I'm going to go. Then I'm going to go after Joe Sakic, or I'm going to go after Forsberg or somebody like that. He did the worst of all things. He waited 2 weeks and then went after the guy after Moore when he had already fought Brad May. It was the worst, most cowardly incident I've ever seen. So that was not a situation of instant emotion and instant like throwing gas on a fire. That was simply premeditated, and it wasn't right. And if you remember our interview early on with Greg Wilson. You remember that?
I remember having him on. Yeah.
He talked about going to training camp with the Washington Capitals, and you probably don't know Rod Langway, but Rod Langway was a great defenseman, a great stay-at-home, big, heavy-duty defenseman in Washington for many, many years. And he went around Langway in training camp. And I don't know if it was the first or second time he dangled around him, and then he kind of woke up laying against the end boards, and Langway just broke his stick over the back of Greg's shoulders. And he said, "Kid, don't ever show me up again. Don't do that." So there's a point where, if you remember back to playing, where we got up a couple of goals and we're obviously in control of the game, and it is just run the clock. Get it over center, dump it, and change. Keep the clock moving. Just whatever you do, don't go down and do a bunch of between the legs stuff. We're up by 4. It's the third period. Start the bus. Let's go home. Let's just get everybody out of here the easy way. Let's not do anything stupid. The only time, and for the sake of full disclosure, it was before you were playing. We were playing our arch rival, Arapahoe. And we were up, I believe it was 6-0 in the second period, at the end of the second period. And we were pushing them around badly. There was a face-off in their end with 4 seconds left in the second period. We pulled our goaltender. But that was a really poor thing to do. It was not good sportsmanship, and I take full responsibility for it. But it was our rival. It was the Red Wings and the Avalanche back in the heyday, and it just happened. And it was a total up yours. It was a complete rub your nose in it. I've got you down by a touchdown, and I'm going to pull my goaltender to try to get one more with 4 seconds left in the second period, just because I don't like you, and I don't care what you think about it. And that's all it was. And that's not the way it should happen.
No.
So
I was a part of it freshman or sophomore year of high school, playing Arapahoe at Magnus, and the whole Pugnier fight incident with the Arapahoe and the stick over the head and the that stuff. So I get it. It's I don't know, maybe I give people too much credit, more credit than they deserve. I just view it as there comes a point where you're in a position where there's really no excuse but for you to have some checks and balances with your emotions a little bit. Not saying that Jay Beagle shouldn't have done this, or that this or that was wrong or whatever, but checks and balances a little bit, because at the end of the day, it wasn't Troy Terry doing anything. It wasn't this or that. You see it a lot in scrums where face washes is all you do, and the main culprit is the one who has to throw. So it's one of those, I don't know. It's, to me, in past incidents, and you see it based on from past incidents where things have changed. Past incidents, it's an organizational thing. Steve Moore should not have been on the ice. And whether that's Bob Hartley's doing or whoever it was, Steve Moore answered to Brad May. You're now up 7-2. Yeah, Steve Moore might be your middle six, bottom six guy who should get some ice time, but you're also your fingers on the pulse here. You're the one in the building. Feel the heat of what's going on here, and realize that Steve Moore, even if he answered to Brad May, Steve Moore is going to be the target of this because he's fresh with it while also losing 7-2. Steve Moore is now going to be the guy they go. So let's keep Steve off the ice.
Pull a hammy, put him in the showers.
Whether it's Bob Hartley's doing, whether it's Dallas Eakins with the most recent one, I don't know.
Here's another question for you, and this is kind of rhetorical. Anaheim has recently gotten rid of Curtis McDermott, and Josh Manson, two very tough customers.
McDermott came from LA.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I thought well, okay. At one time he was in Anaheim, I think.
Yeah, he came from LA to Colorado. Manson was Manson and Lindholm are the recent Ducks that have left.
When a team like Colorado wants to gear up for the playoffs, any team, not just Colorado, any team wants to gear up for the playoffs. Who are they looking for? Now, yes, they're a little cheaper, but if you don't have that deterrent in your lineup or in your press box, you're in trouble, and you're going to get guys like Troy Terry beat up. And I put that back on, temporarily anyway, the Anaheim Ducks organization for not having anybody there that can protect your young guys. You got Drysdale, who's about 5'10". You got Terry, who's a skilled guy. Zegras, who's a skilled guy. Who's protecting these guys? The Rangers went out and got Ryan Reeves. Everybody in that roster now is about 6'4" and 230 because Revo's around. Tom Wilson, Wayne Simmons.
To me, that comes to a leadership thing.
Get some guys that can protect your boys. You got a bunch of whispery little 21-year-olds. Get some muscle in that lineup. And teams will not push you around. Jay Beagle didn't have to look over his shoulder for anyone. There's nobody in that organization that is a threat to Jay Beagle.
To me, it's a leadership thing. Ryan Getzlaf's capable of throwing.
He's injured, but yeah.
He's injured, but still, it's a leadership thing. It goes back to respect, sportsmanship, whatever else. It goes back to Chara wringing Marchand's neck for licking people and for doing things like that, because it happened. I'm not the biggest Marchand fan, that, but in the way he's played the game in recent years, you're going to tell me that he just miraculously matured and changed? No. After the playoff battle against Tampa Bay with Ryan Callahan and all these things, I can guarantee you, I don't have to be in that room, I can guarantee you Chara and Bergeron grabbed him and pinned him to the wall and said, that's not how this shit goes. And as a result, like Marchand or not, his game has become better in how he handles things.
He's getting suspended a little less.
So, New York, that's ridiculous. And I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole. You know where I stand with it, that Tom Wilson wasn't suspended for what he did. But in response to it, New York went out and added Ryan Reeves. That's how you handle it. Colorado was a cup contender last year the way they are this year, but they got bounced in the second round, and they didn't just get bounced. After the first two games, they got embarrassed. They got embarrassed in all facets of the game. And
they got pushed around.
The biggest one being they got pushed around physically. So you're gearing up for the playoffs this year. What does Sakic do? Josh Manson, Cogliano. He brought in McDermott in the offseason. You're getting Eric Johnson is healthy. Makar is no slouch. You're now geared up to where now you can not only play physically, but you can respond physically.
Right.
And that's nowhere a guarantee that the Avalanche are Cup winners this year. Anything can happen, but they're at least better prepared now for how a series will be played. You don't
Yes.
need McDermott in the lineup every night, but if you start to see that your series matchup against X opponent is getting pretty heated, pretty physical, you can now, for games 3, 4, and 5, can have McDermott in the lineup, and that helps you not get pushed around so much. So
Exactly.
it's
You
how
can
you.
you can put him on the ice to start the game. You
Yeah.
can put him in the starting roster. That'll send enough of a message.
But it goes to show you how effective controlled emotions can be.
Exactly. And this
And
is what
I
happens
guess
when
that's the point I'm getting at is, yeah, there's the heat of the moment, and I've been in the heat of the moment in hockey games before. Shit happens. But if you don't control those emotions, things can get bad real quick. And we've seen it happen in the past. Not comparing the Jay Beagle incident to Todd Bertuzzi, but the Todd Bertuzzi thing is worst case scenario when you don't control your emotions and you don't have somebody grab Todd Bertuzzi and go, take a cold shower and cool the hell off.
yeah.
More fought May. We're done. It's done. Leave it.
Well,
Somebody's got to control things a little bit, because like of an active volcano or anything else, you don't do things properly, it will blow. Something's gotta be there to keep things under control, whether that's a coach, whether that's proper leadership. Controlled emotion leaves you in a position to where your response is much more understood and accepted than
and
if you're
respect.
just going off the handle. So,
I agree.
but
Yep.
anyway, um,
So on to NC2A.
yes.
This afternoon, I don't know when this will drop, but this afternoon we've got the semis, DU and Michigan.
As of this recording, this won't drop today, but as of this recording, the semifinals for the Frozen Four kicks off this afternoon. Denver and Michigan going at. That'll be a good matchup.
Fantastic.
And then I believe it's tomorrow.
Minnesota State.
I believe it's tomorrow. I'd have to look at the schedule. Minnesota State play for the right to go to the national championship. So that'll be good. Unfortunately, for certain reasons, can't watch it in this household, but it'll be good hockey nonetheless. So if you're able to, make sure you sit down and enjoy that. That'll be
Again,
exciting.
for everybody listening, whether it's your local, your state or provincial bantams, midgets, peewees, if it's junior hockey, junior A, provincial junior, major junior, whatever it is, NCAA, get out and see it, support it, go see it. It's fantastic. It's passionate. These are guys playing for the love of the game. And for most of them, for 95% of the players that you'll see from the NC2A on down, they may be playing their very last game.
Yep.
And there's a ton of emotion and a ton of passion in it. And it is a beautiful thing to see. Get out and support it. Again, whether it's local minor hockey or collegiate level or junior, it is great stuff.
Yeah,
Absolutely great stuff.
So, everywhere you turn, there's meaningful hockey being played somewhere.
Yeah.
USHL, we didn't even touch on the USHL. They put on good hockey games. They're getting to the end of their season if they haven't already. Again, forgive us for not touching on that. Major junior, even they're getting down to the wire with that too. BCHL and other leagues in the CJHL, Alberta and Saskatchewan and Manitoba, they're getting to their playoffs. NCAA getting down to the national championship, home stretch for the NHL and their season to the playoffs. So a lot of good hockey. Close out real quick on. It's hard on a podcast to do these types of moments, like a moment of silence or anything, just because of dead air or whatever. But take a moment for the Humboldt Broncos 4 years ago, and
Don't ever forget.
If you don't know the story, which if you're a hockey person, I don't know how you wouldn't, but look it up. Jump on the fancy Google machine and type in the Humboldt Broncos, and I'm sure it'll be the first link that pulls up, because that's something that doesn't just easily go away. And read about it.
I have one thing that I really, really feel strongly about with respect to that. And first of all, yes, don't ever let that be forgotten. These are boys, they're sons and brothers and teammates that are missed every day. They were just out doing their thing. They got on the bus just like kids do every day all across North America. Don't let them be forgotten. There was another incident at the same time that was overshadowed by the Humboldt bus crash. And that was, I believe his name was Jeff Petra, young boy from Ottawa that had a horrendous, heart-wrenching skin condition and lost that battle at the age of like 11 or so, at the same time of the bus crash. And I don't remember the artist, but there's a painting out there. I believe the bus crash was on the 6th, and I think Jeff died on the same day or the day after. And forgive me for not knowing, but an artist did a painting of all of the lost Broncos standing in heaven with their sweaters on and their sticks. And the new guy came up, Jeff. And this is a painting of of the hockey game, the pond hockey game in heaven. And Jeff comes up, Jeff Petra, and one of the Broncos says, "Hey, you want to play?"
Yep.
Great painting. Look it up. Don't forget.
Yep. Never forget. So
the emotions of the game are what make it great. And don't lose that. Let them go. The boys will figure it out. Yep. They always do.
Yep, absolutely. Cheers to Humboldt Broncos. And yep, it's you do it right. That's something that you never have to forget. So whether it be the Humboldt Broncos or how you honor military and all that stuff, that's arguably more important than how Jay Beagle chooses to respond to things or anything like that. So,
a lot. I don't like the
Broncos, and so
I don't like to make fun of anything that, and I'm not making light of anybody that gets the crap beat out of them. But it's a tough game. It's a violent game. Boys will be boys. Emotions run high. It's what makes it great. It's why we love it. If you've ever seen a game with no emotion in it whatsoever, which is all too common, it stinks. It's like watching continental drift. It's no good. Controversy is what makes the world go around. If you tell us what you think. A lot of things happen today that you may like, you may hate. We'd love to hear. We're open to any opinion and any kind of input, and we're always willing to listen to how wonderful and right we are. And it just proves what kind of open-minded guys we really can be.
Because we are. We don't have an ounce of stubbornness in us at all. Warm the Hockey Podcast, Facebook and Instagram. Warm the Hockey Podcast at Warm the Hockey Podcast. Engage with us. Yep. Share stories. Engage with us. Ask questions. Apple Podcast, Spotify, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. And subscribe, rate, and review, and share. Family, friends, anybody you know. Continue to help us grow. YouTube. Exception of a few weeks here and there, YouTube will be an active thing for our Zooms and our video versions. So make sure you subscribe there and enjoy. We're on the Hockey Podcast, Emotions of the Game. Thanks for joining on Zoom this week.
My pleasure, as always.
And I'm Evan Rauer with the We're on the Hockey Podcast. We'll see you all throughout the hockey community. Cheers.
See you. Cheers.